I'm here today to share with you my story. A story in which that I experienced one evening while going from a family member's home to my place where I had been renting. I had left around midnight. I was heading home. I had been hanging out with family for a while, and I was heading back home for the night, and it was probably approximately around midnight at the time. And I'm heading home in the hometown I lived in at the time. I was driving down the main drag of the road in the town. I had not been drinking, had not been under the influence of drugs or anything like sleep deprivation to possibly account for what I'm about to tell you. What had occurred was I'm driving northbound on this road, and on the driver's side, I look up about midway down this road. When I looked up on my driver's side, I noticed a very large vehicle or craft in the air. It was so enormous, it was at least an estimate here, about, I'd say, 2 miles in length and width. It had a thick middle to it, with the top and bottom tapering off more towards the top, and then the bottom tapering off as well. The other thing was unique about it was that it obviously had variety of colors, red, yellow. Was definitely was visible to me. But what was really interesting was there was absolutely no sound. This thing was of enormous size. It looked and appeared to me in nature that it was not of our. I'm speaking of the human race technology that is existent as we know it today. So when I'm looking up, caught off guard, I see this huge, enormous, bright vehicle shining in the sky like a small city floating there. And I noticed something eerie about everything going on. What did I notice? There was nobody on the streets. There was no cars on the roads. I was the only one driving on this road. Now, there's thousands of occupants all around me in their houses. And where this thing was, it was heading up on a hillside, going towards, at least it appeared to be, heading towards the lake that was nearby the town, and about 15 to 20 miles north, which the direction of this vehicle, this craft was going, there was a military base nearby. Now, at first I see this thing, immediate fear comes over me. The fear that, wait a minute, what is this? This is not fit into the scenario of my scenery here. What do I do? Now, mind you, I'm driving, and you see this thing, and you're quite in shock. So, all the stories that people have given about their views, such about when they experience seeing something of this nature, the first thing that they usually say was they experience, some sort of shock, and then the vehicle goes dead from an EMP or whatever it is. That did not happen. Some people say they experienced time loss. I experienced no time loss, but I did experience shock. Shock in such a degree that I was actually doubting I was seeing what I was seeing because it was such a magnificent sight to view. It felt almost unrealistic. it would be equivalent to somebody several hundred years ago viewing our technology today. It's so vastly superior, it would just throw them off. They would not comprehend it. It would probably send them in shock or fear, such as this thing did to me. Now, one can only speculate, and I'm going to do that at this time, that this is ours. That this craft is ours. So, this craft is ours. Well, it's making no sound. It's putting out lots of energy, lights. It's massive. It has to have obviously a huge energy source to be able to be there like that. It's got to have a large population of something running it. So I'm thinking, wait a minute here. If this is ours, it's detected me, it knows I spotted it, I could be in danger, imminent danger here. I've just spotted something I probably shouldn't have seen. But if it was ours, then that means that our government has been lying to us, and other governments have been either collaborating and lying to us for a very, very long time, in which tells me that we could travel to different places in the universe, maybe possibly different galaxies or dimensions as we know it. So that was the first thought that I started thinking after the event had occurred. But as the event occurred, I was in shock. I'm thinking, do I follow this thing? It was going horizontally with me. It didn't seem to be flying upwards. It seemed to be kind of going along the hillside towards a destination. Now the thing was so huge. I'm thinking, first of all, if I follow it, and obviously detected me, it could destroy me. No one would know what happened to me, or it could be so-called kidnapped somehow from this thing. If it had the potential to do what I saw it to do, it could definitely take me probably onto the ship. So I watched for a little while this thing heading into the direction of sort of like the lake or the countryside. Now, I, I was in panic and shock. I did not want to believe what I saw, but I did see what I saw, and it was of magnificent size and proportion that to give you specs on it, miles and such, I'm not um, I'm not an expert, so I cannot speculate for you on size. That's magnitude, but I would say it probably would have been closer to not a scout ship, but possibly like a transport ship, passenger ship, tourist ship, however you want to look at it. And it looked built like that. It didn't seem to have any weapons on their armaments. It did not seem hostile. So um, I did not experience time loss. I did not experience, um, you know, shutdown of the car. There was a lot of factors that didn't seem to match up from the common denominator that people say, hey, I experienced this, this happened, this happened, this happened. What I saw on TV was completely opposite of what I saw. So I, obviously I was in shock and bewildered that this thing existed. I thought, wait a minute here. If this isn't ours, then it's a visitor from another world or another place or another dimension. Then it's possible they've been coming and going for a very long time. And I'm thinking, okay, they've been coming and going for a very long time. This was such a big event. It's gotta be recorded somewhere. It's gonna be talked about. There's gonna be eyewitnesses to this. I can't be the only one. Well, after that event that morning slash night, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around there, I go home, I sleep, I wake in the morning, go to work. I tell a few people at work, hey, I seen this thing. Now, obviously, I've never talked about this stuff before. So what happened is I told a few people, and some people automatically believed me. Some people are a little skeptical, but they know who I am, so they seem to trust me. Well, later on that afternoon, there was these loud sonic blasts outside of the place I was working. So several of us went outside to see what it was. There was military fighter planes flying high up in the air over the city. Now, it seemed quite odd to us that this was occurring, and an older gentleman told me that that they're not allowed to do that unless there's a threat in the area. They're not supposed to be flying over city limits of the city because it's a danger, a hazard to the occupants in case something goes wrong. Because it's something to do with policy. Now, obviously, I don't know about military policy, and I don't know about flight tactics and what flight training and what's going on and the boundaries of that. But it was quite unusual because the sounds, about three or four of these fighter planes chasing this thing at high altitude, you could see them maneuvering, and it was quite high up, so it was difficult to follow. But whatever they were chasing was faster than they were. So my story seemed to be validated later that day by this weird event of these fighter planes above the city chasing something. Now, several years later, after the event had happened, I looked for evidence and other things to come along to explain this, or at least eyewitnesses or reports made. I could not find none. The interesting fact about this thing, because it made no sound, was I discovered that there's magnetic energies on the Earth, and that where I had eyewitnesses thing was considered to be along one of these magnetic lines, which this vehicle could have been using for some sort of energy source. Now, I thought this is a tourist vehicle maybe in the area, traveling through on a way from point A to point B for all we know, and they stop by to maybe refuel, resupply, and leave, or whatever. Maybe they've been coming and going for a very long time on this planet. I am not sure, but this was something that I cannot explain. Now, it was a turning point in my life because when I saw this, I had to assume that either we are vastly superior in technology and we're lying to others on this planet and even to the citizens, or we've been as beings on this earth, we have been visited by many different cultures and groups from other worlds for maybe a very long time, and this is just one of them. And they were not a hostile group; they were probably like sightseeing or visiting, or they were passengers of some sort. So this changed my perspective about my place in the world. I finally come to the realization that for me, that we're not alone. That there are others with vastly superior technology that could teach us stuff and help us learn. Um, um, that may be even able to enlighten us on events and maybe kind of help us along the way if that's really what's going on. I don't know, but if it's ours, I definitely am a little worried about the confidentiality of all this going on. But the real thing about this whole situation is that I experienced a strange phenomenon, witnessed a large vehicle making no sound with vast superior amounts of energy and technology that is superior than what we have today, the known today.